Commander Vox tapped his four-fingered hand on the glass desk as he reviewed the final assessment report. The blue light from the screen reflected on his gray skin. His third eye, located in the center of his forehead, blinked independently from the other two as he focused on the data. Earth. What a strange little planet, he muttered. The holographic display showed images of human cities, their primitive aircraft, and their most advanced space vessels, simple modules orbiting their own planet, and a few robots exploring their nearest neighbors. Class 3 threat level, Vox said with finality, entering the classification. Barely worth our attention. Officer Trell stood nearby, her slim frame tense with disagreement. She stepped forward, her skin shifting to a lighter shade of gray, a sign of concern among their species. Commander, with respect, I believe this assessment is incorrect, she said. There are patterns in human behavior that suggest. Patterns. Vox laughed, cutting her off. What patterns? Look at them. Trell. They fight over invisible borders. They cannot agree on simple planetary governance. Half of them don't even believe in basic science. Some still think their planet is flat. He pulled up more images, humans arguing in their governing chambers, protests in streets, wars in desert regions. They have nuclear weapons, Trell pointed out, which they've only used twice, and against themselves, Vox countered. Besides, what good are nuclear weapons against our shield technology? They couldn't even reach our nearest outpost with their fastest ships. It would take them, he calculated quickly, over 100 of their years. Trell's lower eye narrowed. That's not what concerns me, Commander. It's their adaptability, their unpredictability. No other species we've encountered shows such chaotic innovation. Vox waved his hand dismissively. Your concern is noted, officer. But the Galactic Confederation has standardized protocols for threat assessment, and Earth fails to meet any criteria for a higher classification. He pressed his palm to the screen, finalizing the report with his biosignature. Class 3 it is. We'll maintain basic surveillance and review again in 50 years. Trell bowed slightly, knowing further argument was useless. Yes, Commander. Lieutenant Alex Drake stood at the observation window of the Confederation outpost Gamma 9, located in what humans call the Kuiper Belt. To the aliens, he appeared attentive and respectful, even a bit awestruck by their technology, as expected from a species new to the galactic community. None of them noticed how his eyes tracked the movement of their security drones, or how he counted the seconds between automated system checks. This is remarkable technology, Drake said to his alien guide, a junior officer named Milt. The way you harness quantum energy for your communications, we're still figuring out how to make stable quantum computers on Earth. Milt puffed up with pride. Yes, we achieved quantum mastery over 2,000 years ago. Your species is young, but showing promise. That's why we've allowed human representatives at our outposts to learn. Drake nodded humbly. We're very grateful for the opportunity. A notification chimed on Milt's wrist device. Excuse me, Lieutenant. I need to attend to this. Please feel free to enjoy the view from the observation deck. The restricted areas are clearly marked. Of course, Drake said with a polite smile. I wouldn't dream of overstepping. As soon as Milt left, Drake's demeanor changed. His eyes hardened, and he pulled a device smaller than his thumb from his pocket. Moving casually toward a maintenance panel, he pressed the device against it for 3 seconds, then continued walking as if simply exploring the observation deck. Later that night, in his quarters, Drake opened a secure communication channel disguised as a personal entertainment device. The message was brief and encoded. Package DELIVRED. System Access Stabilized. Proceed Phase 2. The reply came within seconds. ACKNO.LEGGD. Maintain position. 53 similar installations infiltrated. Keuntiyodoen. 97 days. Drake allowed himself a small smile before destroying the evidence of the communication. At Confederation headquarters, Commander Vox was preparing to end his shift when a junior analyst rushed in. "Commander, we're receiving strange reports from the outer sectors. Multiple outposts going dark." Vox frowned. "Define dark." "Complete communication blackout, sir. No quantum signals. No light-speed transmissions. Nothing. It started with Outpost Theta 12 8 hours ago. Now we've lost contact with 5 more. Probably a quantum relay malfunction," Vox said, though a flicker of worry crossed his face. "Have the nearest patrol ships investigate." "Already done, sir. That's the problem. We've lost contact with those ships too." Vox's third eye widened. "Show me the pattern of these outages." The analyst projected a map of the affected sectors. Vox studied it, his concern growing. The outages weren't random. They'd followed a clear pattern, spreading inward from the galaxy's edge. "When did the last outpost go silent?" he asked. 17 minutes ago, sir." "At this rate." The analyst's voice trailed off. "At this rate, what?" Vox demanded. "At this rate, the blackout will reach major Confederation worlds within days." Vox remembered Trell's warnings about human unpredictability. But no, this couldn't be related to Earth. Humans were primitives, barely able to reach their own moon without tremendous effort. His communicator beeped, a priority message from the High Council. "Commander Vox, your presence is required immediately. Multiple sectors have gone silent. We are declaring a Level 1 emergency." Vox felt a chill run through his body. Level 1 emergencies were almost unheard of in the Confederation's 10,000-year history. "On my way," he replied, rushing out of his office. As he hurried down the corridor, he passed the human diplomatic section. Lieutenant Drake and 2 other human representatives were calmly drinking beverages in their lounge area. They nodded respectfully as he passed. For just a moment, Vox thought he saw something in Drake's eyes, a knowing look, quickly hidden behind a mask of deference. But he was too preoccupied to dwell on it. Behind him, Drake watched the commanders retreating back, then glanced at his watch. "It's beginning," he said softly to his colleagues. "Right on schedule." The other humans nodded, their expressions neutral but their eyes bright with the knowledge of what was coming. Across the vast reaches of space, in outposts, on ships, and on planets throughout the Confederation, other humans, diplomatic staff, maintenance workers, cultural exchange representatives, checked their timepieces and waited. The Confederation had never imagined that the primitive humans could be a threat. That was their first mistake. Soon, they would discover just how many others they had made. Commander Vox had never seen the High Council chamber so empty. Of the 60 seats arranged in the circular room, only 28 were filled. The rest belonged to representatives from sectors that had gone silent over the past month. The Supreme Counselor, an ancient being named Grell whose skin had faded to almost white with age, called the emergency meeting to order. "We face an unprecedented crisis," Grell announced, his voice amplified through the chamber. "Nearly half of our Confederation territories are now dark. No communications, no trade vessels, nothing." A military officer stood up. "Supreme Counselor, I recommend we deploy the battle fleet to investigate." "We already have," replied the admiral of the fleet. "We've lost contact with 30% of our ships. The rest are returning to core worlds as ordered." Vox looked around the room. Fear was visible on every face, an emotion rarely displayed in Confederation meetings. "Could it be a natural phenomenon?" asked a science advisor. "Perhaps a wave of quantum disruption from beyond the galaxy. That wouldn't explain why our ships go silent when they enter affected areas," the admiral countered. "This is targeted. This is an attack." The word hung in the air. Attack. But by whom? The Confederation had no enemies capable of such a coordinated strike. They had been the dominant power in the galaxy for thousands of years. Vox's communicator beeped. It was Officer Trell. "Commander, I've been analyzing the pattern of outages," she said urgently. "There's something you need to see." "Not now, Trell." "I'm in the High Council meeting," Vox whispered. "Sir," This is. The connection suddenly cut off. At the same moment, the chamber's lighting flickered. "We've lost connection to Orbital Station 1, announced a technician. And Station 2. And all orbital communications." Panic erupted in the chamber. Orbital Station 1 was directly above them, in orbit around the Confederation capital world. Vox looked up at the observation gallery where various diplomatic representatives were seated. The human contingent was getting up to leave, moving calmly toward the exit, while other species rushed about in confusion. Lieutenant Drake caught Vox's eye for a moment. This time, there was no mistaking the look. It wasn't respect or deference. It was something like pity. Admiral Krell stood on the bridge of the Confederation battlecruiser Invincible, the flagship of the Third Fleet. The massive ship, over 3 kilometers long, represented the pinnacle of Confederation military power. "Status report," he demanded. His second-in-command, Captain Pell, looked worried. "Sir, we've lost contact with the 4th and 5th Fleets, and our long-range scanners are detecting no signals from any of the silent sectors. What about short-range communications with our escort ships? Still operational, Admiral?" Krell nodded. At least his battle group was intact. 16 warships, all top of the line, with crews trained to handle any threat. "Set course for the Epsilon sector border," he ordered. "We'll establish a perimeter and investigate the silence." "Sir," a junior officer interrupted. "Engineering reports problems with the quantum drive. It's showing signs of instability." Krell frowned. "The drive was inspected last week. It was functioning perfectly." "Yes, sir. The chief engineer is investigating." Captain Pell checked his datapad. "Sir, the maintenance logs show that the human technical advisors were assisting with routine checks 3 days ago." "The humans?" Krell looked surprised. "What would they know about quantum drives? Their species hasn't even mastered basic faster-than-light travel." An alarm blared through the ship. Red emergency lights flashed. "Multiple systems failing, Admiral," shouted the operations officer. "Weapons, shields, propulsion, all going offline." "How is this possible?" Krell demanded. Captain Pell's eyes widened with sudden realization. "Sir, I saw the human technicians accessing the central computer core during their inspection. I didn't think anything of it at the time since they were authorized personnel." "Impossible," Krell said. "Humans don't have the knowledge to." The ship lurched violently as the main engine shut down. Emergency power kicked in, keeping life support and artificial gravity functioning, but little else. "Sir," reported the communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission. It's from Earth." Meanwhile, deep beneath the Rocky Mountains on Earth, General West stood in the global command center of the United Earth Defense Force. Around him, hundreds of officers monitored massive screens showing real-time data from across the galaxy. "Phase 1 is 87% complete," General reported Colonel James. "Confederation communications network has been compromised. Their fleet is scattered and largely disabled." West nodded, his face stern but satisfied. "And Phase 2? Ready to proceed on your order, sir." West walked to a central console and placed his palm on a scanner. "Authorization. West, Thomas J., General, UEDF. Execute Phase 2. Across the solar system, hidden installations buried in asteroids, concealed beneath the surfaces of moons, and floating camouflaged in the Kuiper Belt suddenly activated. Thousands of ships, sleek, black vessels that had never been seen by Confederation observers, powered up their engines. "Stealth fleet reporting ready, General," announced a communications officer. "All 5,000 ships awaiting deployment orders." On the main screen, a map of the galaxy showed large sections turning from red, Confederation-controlled, to blue, Earth-controlled. "The deception worked perfectly, sir," said Colonel James. "They never saw us coming." West's expression remained grave. "They saw what we wanted them to see, Colonel. A divided planet of squabbling primitives. It was the perfect cover while we prepared." "Sir," interrupted an officer, "we're getting a priority message from Lieutenant Drake on the Confederation capital world." Drake's face appeared on a side screen. "General, the blackout has reached the capital. The Council is in disarray. Request permission to proceed with capturing key Confederation leaders." "Granted, Lieutenant. Remember, minimal casualties. We want them as allies eventually, not enemies." "Understood, sir." Drake out. As the connection ended, West turned to address the command center. 200 years ago, our ancestors detected the first Confederation probes entering our solar system. Instead of announcing ourselves, they made the bold decision to hide our true capabilities. For generations, we've maintained the illusion of being primitive while secretly building the most advanced fleet in the galaxy. He paused, looking at the officers around him. "Today, we end the charade. Today, humanity takes its place among the stars, not as junior members of their confederation, but as its new leaders." The room erupted in applause. On a secondary screen, Admiral Krell's face appeared as the Invincible received Earth's transmission. His expression changed from confusion to shock as he realized the truth about the supposedly primitive species his people had so fatally underestimated. Commander Vox ran through the darkened corridors of the Confederation Capitol building. Emergency lights cast an eerie red glow as officials and diplomats rushed in all directions. The once orderly seat of galactic government had descended into chaos within hours. "Trell," he called out, spotting his officer trying to access a computer terminal. "What's happening?" She looked up, her gray skin now almost white with stress. "It's a coordinated attack, Commander. All systems are failing. Defense networks, communication arrays, everything." "By whom? Who could possibly have the technology to?" "The humans," Trell said flatly. "I tried to warn you." Vox stared at her in disbelief. "That's impossible. They're primitives. They don't even have faster-than-light travel." "Follow me," Trell said, abandoning the useless terminal. "There's someone you need to meet." They made their way deeper into the building, descending levels that Vox didn't even know existed. Finally, they reached a heavy door with ancient markings. "What is this place?" he asked. "The archive," Trell replied. "Few know of its existence." Inside, they found an elderly alien hunched over a desk covered with physical books and papers. Technology so outdated that most Confederation citizens had never seen such things. "Archivist Mev," Trell said respectfully. "I've brought Commander Vox." The ancient being looked up slowly. His species was different from Vox's, with pale blue skin and 6 eyes arranged in a circle on his face. "So this is the one who classified Earth as a Class 3 threat," Mev said, his voice crackling with age. "Sit down, Commander. It's time you learned the truth." Mev pushed a dusty book toward Vox. "This is the record of the Zorn Empire. They ruled this galaxy 5,000 years ago, before the Confederation existed." "I've never heard of them," Vox admitted. "Exactly," Mev said. "They disappeared completely. Their last official records mention a newly discovered world with primitive but unusual inhabitants. They called it the Blue Planet." Vox's third eye widened. "Earth?" "Yes," Mev confirmed. "The Zorn Empire classified them as harmless. 3 years later, the entire empire vanished from history." "Are you suggesting humans destroyed an entire galactic civilization?" 5,000 years ago. "That's absurd," Vox protested. Mev opened another book. "This pattern has repeated. The Grath Collective, 2,000 years ago. The Stellar Union, 800 years ago. All encountered Earth, all dismissed humans as primitive, all subsequently disappeared." Trell activated a small device that projected emergency transmissions they'd intercepted over the past hours. Frantic alien voices described ships being disabled, systems failing, and in several cases, human representatives suddenly revealing advanced technology and taking control. "I've analyzed the pattern," Trell explained. "They infiltrated our society decades ago, posing as a primitive species just discovering space travel. But they were studying us, mapping our weaknesses. If they're so advanced, why hide it? Vox asked. Why the deception? Because, Mev said slowly, it is the perfect strategy. If they had approached as equals, we would have seen them as potential rivals. By appearing weak, they gained access to our technology, our defense systems, our entire infrastructure, while we suspected nothing. Admiral Krell stood on the bridge of his crippled flagship, watching a human face on the main view screen. The human called himself Commander Jordan, and he wore a sleek black uniform unlike the simple clothes humans usually wore in Confederation space. Admiral, Jordan said calmly, your ship is disabled. Your escort vessels have been neutralized. I'm offering you and your crew terms of surrender. How? Krell demanded. How did primitives like you accomplish this? Jordan smiled slightly. We were never primitives, Admiral. That was a mask we wore for your benefit. But our observers on Earth, they saw your primitive rockets, your clumsy space stations. They saw what we wanted them to see, Jordan explained. We detected your probes centuries ago and made a strategic decision. Rather than announce ourselves, we created a careful illusion while preparing in secret. The view screen split to show images that stunned Krell into silence. Massive shipyards hidden in asteroid belts, advanced cities concealed beneath Earth's oceans, weapons platforms disguised as space debris, while your observers watched our fake space program struggle to reach our own moon. Jordan continued, our real ships were already exploring distant stars through artificial wormholes that leave no energy signature. Krell sank into his command chair. Why reveal yourselves now? Why attack? This isn't an attack, Admiral. It's a rescue operation. On Earth, in the underground command center, General West monitored the global operation. Lieutenant Drake's team had secured the Confederation capital with minimal resistance. Admiral Krell's fleet had been neutralized. Phase 2 was proceeding perfectly. Colonel James approached with a data pad. General, we've received communication from the Outer Watch. West's expression turned grim. Show me. The screen displayed a star map with a strange distortion moving toward the galaxy from intergalactic space. Estimated arrival? West asked. 10 years, possibly less, James replied. The Confederation would never have detected it in time. Their monitoring systems were focused inward, not on the intergalactic void. West nodded. That's why we couldn't wait any longer. The Confederation's rigid hierarchy and centralized systems make them vulnerable. They would collapse within months of first contact. The captured Confederation leaders are being brought to the briefing room, James reported. Should we tell them about the threat? Yes, West decided. They need to understand why we've done this. We're not conquerors. We're preparing for the real war to come. Back in the archive, Vox was still struggling to understand. If humans are so advanced, why bother with us at all? Why not simply develop on their own? Mev handed him a final document. Because of this, long-range scans from 8 Earth months ago. Vox studied the readings. What am I looking at? Something approaching our galaxy, Trell explained. Something massive, and unlike anything we've encountered. The humans detected it years ago. Their infiltration of the Confederation wasn't conquest. It was preparation. Preparation for what? Vox asked, though he already feared the answer. For something worse than humans, Mev said quietly. Something that destroys entire galaxies. The humans believe the Confederation's rigid structure makes us vulnerable to this threat. Their deception was partly to protect themselves, and partly to protect us from our own complacency. Vox looked at the emergency transmissions still playing. Instead of battle, many showed humans taking control of key systems and stabilizing them. Not destroying, but reorganizing. We've made a terrible mistake, he whispered. Yes, Trell agreed, but not the one you think. Our mistake wasn't underestimating humans. It was failing to see what they were trying to prepare us for. Outside, the red emergency lights suddenly switched to normal lighting as power was restored to the capital. A calm human voice came over the communication system. "Attention all Confederation citizens. The transition of authority is proceeding peacefully. Please remain calm and comply with instructions from Earth Defense Force personnel. This is not a conquest. This is a reorganization necessary for our mutual survival. More information will follow." Vox looked at Trell and Mev. "What happens now?" "Now," Mev said, gathering his ancient books, "we learn how to work with the humans, because the alternative is extinction." 2 weeks after what was now being called the transition, Commander Vox found himself on a shuttle approaching Earth. Once classified as a backwater planet of little importance, it was now revealed as the center of the most elaborate deception in galactic history. The shuttle broke through the clouds and Vox gasped. The human cities he saw bore little resemblance to the images in Confederation records. Instead of the crude, sprawling urban centers shown in their files, he saw gleaming metropolises with elegant towers that seemed to flow rather than stand. Vehicles moved in perfect coordination through the air, nothing like the primitive ground cars that humans had pretended to rely on. "Impressive, isn't it?" said Trell, who sat beside him. "They maintained fake cities for our observation satellites. Entire populations lived their lives as actors in a planetary-scale deception. Their shuttle landed at a facility outside a city the humans called Denver. Unlike the simple spaceports Vox had expected, this was clearly an advanced military installation that had somehow remained hidden from Confederation scans for centuries. Lieutenant Drake met them as they disembarked. "Commander Vox, Officer Trell, welcome to Earth. General West is waiting for you." They followed Drake through hallways, filled with technology that made Confederation devices look primitive by comparison. Aliens from various Confederation species worked alongside humans, many looking dazed at the rapid changes to the galactic order. The command center they entered was enormous, a vast chamber extending deep into the mountain. Screens displayed real-time information from across the galaxy. General West stood at the center, directing the reorganization of what had once been the Confederation. "Commander Vox," West greeted him with a nod. "I understand you have questions." "Thousands," Vox admitted. "But I'll start with the most important. Why? Why the centuries of deception?" West gestured to a large conference table where Admiral Krell and several other high-ranking Confederation officials were already seated. "Please, join us. It's time you all understood the full picture." Once they were seated, West activated a holographic display in the center of the table. It showed Earth as it appeared 300 years ago. "In the year 1723 by our calendar, we detected the first Confederation probe entering our solar system," West explained. "At that time, we were indeed primitive by your standards. But we were advancing quickly." The display showed early human flight attempts, then rockets, then more advanced spacecraft. "We faced a choice," West continued. "Announce ourselves and join the Confederation as a junior member, subject to your rules and restrictions, or remain hidden while we developed on our own path. You chose deception," Admiral Krell said, his voice bitter. "We chose survival," West corrected. "Our scientists studied your probe and learned enough about Confederation technology to know that your development had stagnated. Your society values stability over innovation. You hadn't made a significant technological breakthrough in over 500 years. Vox wanted to protest, but knew the human was right. The Confederation prided itself on stability. "So we created the greatest covert operation in history," West said. "On the surface, we maintained the appearance of a divided, primitive world. We continued using outdated technology where your probes could see. We even staged conflicts to reinforce the image of a species too fractious to ever unite. The hologram changed to show vast underground complexes and hidden facilities throughout Earth's solar system. Meanwhile, beneath the oceans, under mountains, and in the shadows of moons and asteroids, we built our real civilization. We unified our planet under a secret world government. We developed technologies that took different paths than yours. Like what? Trell asked, her scientific curiosity overcoming her shock. Instead of pursuing faster-than-light drives like yours, we discovered how to create stable, undetectable wormholes, West explained. While you watched our clumsy rockets, our true ships were exploring the galaxy through doorways that left no trace. The display showed sleek black ships, nothing like the primitive spacecraft humans had publicly used. We established hidden colonies on thousands of worlds, West continued. We studied Confederation species, technology, and systems, all while maintaining the illusion of being an isolated primitive planet. But why reveal yourselves now? Vox asked. After centuries of deception, why expose your true nature? West's expression turned grim. He changed the hologram to show a massive dark shape moving through intergalactic space toward the Milky Way. Because of this, we call it the Void Swarm. It has destroyed at least 3 galaxies that we've observed. And it's coming here. The room fell silent as the alien officials stared at the hologram. The dark mass seemed to absorb light around it, a spreading blot against the stars. When will it arrive? Admiral Krell asked, his earlier anger forgotten in the face of this new threat. 10 years. Maybe less, West replied. The Confederation would have detected it eventually, but too late. Your centralized systems, your standardized technology, your rigid command structures, all are vulnerable to the swarm's attacks. How do you know this? Vox asked. Because we've been studying the swarm for over 50 years, West explained. Our wormhole technology allowed us to observe its effects on other galaxies. We know its patterns. It targets communications first, then defense systems. It isolates before it attacks. Just like you did to us, Krell realized. West nodded. We used the swarm's own strategy against the Confederation. Not to destroy you, but to reorganize you, to prepare you. He turned to address all the alien officials. Humanity doesn't want to rule the galaxy. We want to save it. But to do that, we needed to take control quickly, before the swarm arrives. You could have simply told us, Vox protested. Would you have believed us? West asked. Would you have agreed to completely restructure your society based on warnings from a primitive species you barely respected? Or would you have dismissed us, studied the threat at your own pace, followed your protocols, and doomed us all? Vox had no answer. He knew the Confederation's bureaucracy all too well. A human officer approached and whispered something to West. The general nodded and addressed the room again. The first phase of reorganization is complete. 97% of Confederation worlds are now under the new defense protocol. We've established wormhole communication links to replace the vulnerable quantum network. He looked at each alien official in turn. Now comes the hard part. We have 10 years to prepare for a threat that has consumed entire galaxies. We'll need your help, your knowledge, your cooperation. And if we refuse? Admiral Krell asked, though his tone suggested he already knew the answer. Then we all die, West said simply. Humans, your people, everyone. The Void Swarm doesn't discriminate. Vox looked around at his fellow officials. Their expressions showed the same realization dawning on him. The humans hadn't conquered them out of ambition, but out of desperate necessity. What do you need from us? He asked quietly. West's stern expression softened slightly. Everything you know. Everything you are. We have 10 years to become something new together, something the swarm has never encountered before. Outside the mountain complex, Earth's sun was setting, casting long shadows across a world that had hidden its true nature for centuries. A world that was now the last hope for a galaxy facing extinction. 6 months after the transition, the galaxy operated under a drastically different system. The old Confederation, with its rigid hierarchy and central authority, was gone. In its place stood the Galactic Alliance, a more flexible network of worlds united by a common purpose: survival. Commander Vox, now serving as chief liaison between former Confederation species and humans, stood on the observation deck of the station Unity. The massive structure orbited a star at the edge of the galaxy, facing outward toward the approaching threat. From here, observation teams monitored the Void Swarm's slow but steady advance. "Remarkable progress," said a voice behind him. Vox turned to see Admiral Krell approaching. "Admiral," Vox greeted him. "I didn't expect to see you here." "My fleet is being refitted with human wormhole technology," Krell explained. "I thought I should see the enemy we're preparing to face." The two aliens looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, barely visible even with the station's powerful sensors, the darkness was coming. 6 months ago, I would have fought to the death to protect the Confederation from human control, Krell admitted. Now I find myself grateful for their intervention. Vox nodded. The old system wouldn't have survived first contact with the swarm. Too centralized, too dependent on quantum communications. "Still," Krell said, "I wonder sometimes, are we certain the humans are telling the truth? Could this all be an elaborate justification for their takeover?" Before Vox could answer, Lieutenant Drake entered the observation deck. He had become Vox's regular human counterpart in the new administration. "Forgive the interruption," Drake said, "but General West has requested your presence for the demonstration." In a massive hangar bay, representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered around a central platform. General West stood with a team of human scientists and engineers, along with experts from various alien species who had been working together over the past months. "Welcome," West began as Vox and Krell joined the crowd. "Today marks a milestone in our preparations." He gestured to a device in the center of the platform, a sleek, dark cylinder about 2 meters tall. This prototype combines human wormhole technology with Confederation energy systems and material science from the Araxian people, West explained. "Together, we've created something none of us could have developed alone." One of the human scientists stepped forward. "The Void Swarm operates by disrupting standard communications and propulsion systems. This device creates a localized phase shift that should protect our ships and stations from that disruption." "Should?" someone in the crowd asked. "We can't be certain until we face the actual swarm," the scientist admitted. "But our simulations based on observations of affected galaxies show a 94% probability of success." West continued, "Production facilities across 27 worlds are being prepared to manufacture these devices. Within 4 months, every major population center and fleet will be equipped with this protection." As the presentation continued, Vox observed the faces around him. Species that had been enemies or rivals under the old Confederation were now working together with a unity of purpose that would have been unimaginable before. Fear of the swarm was part of it, yes, but there was something more. Later, at a reception following the demonstration, Vox found himself speaking with Officer Trell, who now headed a joint research division. "They've changed us," Vox said quietly. "The humans?" Trell asked. "Yes, not just our political structure or our technology. They've changed how we think." Trell considered this. "The Confederation valued stability above all. We perfected our technology, and then stopped pushing boundaries. Humans never stopped asking questions, never stopped looking for better solutions. Even their deception required incredible innovation," Vox agreed. "Maintaining the illusion of being primitive while secretly advancing beyond us. It's almost admirable." Across the room, Admiral Krell was engaged in an animated discussion with Commander Jordan, the human who had captured his fleet months earlier. Rather than enemies, they now appeared to be colleagues, perhaps even friends. General West stood alone at a window, looking out at the ships coming and going from the station. Drake approached him. "The aliens are adapting faster than we predicted, General," Drake reported. "Especially the younger generations." West nodded. "They have no choice. Neither do we. Some still question whether the Void Swarm is real," Drake said cautiously. Admiral Krell mentioned his doubts earlier. "Then it's time to remove those doubts," West decided. Prepare a ship. We'll take the ranking former Confederation officials to see the evidence firsthand. 2 days later, a small group including Vox, Krell, Trell, and representatives from major alien worlds gathered aboard a human vessel unlike any they had seen before. Sleek and black, it seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. "This is a deep reconnaissance vessel," West explained as they boarded. "It uses our most advanced wormhole technology." "Where are we going?" Vox asked. "To the edge of the Andromeda Galaxy," West replied, "to witness what happens when the swarm arrives." The journey took moments rather than the years it would have required using Confederation drives. The ship emerged from a wormhole at the outskirts of the neighboring galaxy, maintaining a safe distance, but close enough to observe. What they saw silenced all doubts. Entire star systems were going dark, not exploding or being destroyed, simply fading, as if the light and energy were being drained away. The process was slow but relentless, a creeping death spreading across the galaxy's spiral arm. The inhabitants of that galaxy were like the old Confederation, West explained quietly. Centralized, standardized, predictable. They had no chance. "And you believe we can fight this?" Krell asked, his earlier skepticism replaced by horror. "Not as we were," West said, "but together, combining human adaptability with your ancient knowledge, bringing together the unique perspectives of 1,000 different species. Yes, I believe we have a chance." Vox watched as a distant star flickered and died, consumed by the advancing darkness. "We were wrong about humans," he said. "We saw their divided nature as weakness, but it was their greatest strength, the ability to think differently, to question, to find new paths." "And now?" Trell asked. "Now we learn from them," Vox said. "And they learn from us. If any combination of species can face the swarm and survive, it's this new alliance we're building." As the ship prepared to return home, Vox took a final look at the dying galaxy. The Confederation would have faced the same fate, he realized, not because humans had deceived them, but because they had deceived themselves, believing their stability meant safety. The journey back took only moments. When they emerged above Unity Station, the view couldn't have been more different from the death they had just witnessed. Ships of every design, from hundreds of worlds, moved in coordinated patterns around the massive structure. The combined fleet was growing daily, each vessel now incorporating both human and alien technology. West stood before the gathered officials. "Now you understand why we did what we did, why the deception was necessary." Admiral Krell stepped forward. "I was ready to fight to the death against your takeover, General. Now I'll fight just as hard alongside you." One by one, the other officials voiced similar commitments. As the meeting concluded, Vox approached West privately. "You could have simply conquered us," he said. "With your technology, we couldn't have stopped you." West shook his head. "Conquest wasn't the goal. Survival is, for all of us. Humans have always understood something the Confederation forgot. Diversity brings strength. Different perspectives, different approaches. That's what we'll need to face what's coming." Together, they looked out at the combined fleet, the physical embodiment of a new kind of unity, not the enforced standardization of the old Confederation, but a harmony of differences united by common purpose. The deception was over. The real work had begun.
The day Earth changed forever started like any other day on Mars Base Alpha. The red dust covered everything as usual, and the team of 20 humans went about their normal tasks. Commander Jack Miller stood by the main window, looking out at the red planet's surface. His job was to lead this team in their search for signs of water and maybe life on Mars. "Base to Miller, we have a strange reading on our sensors," said Tom, the communications officer. His voice sounded worried over the radio. Miller touched his helmet. "What kind of reading?" "Something big, moving fast, coming toward us." Before Miller could answer, a bright light filled the sky. It was not the sun or any spacecraft they knew, it was something else, something not made by humans. The light grew bigger and brighter until it touched down on the surface about half a mile from their base. As the dust cleared, they saw it clearly for the first time. It was a ship, but unlike any ship humans had built. It shone like metal but moved like something alive. "Everyone stay calm," Miller ordered his team. "We've trained for this. First, contact protocol is now active." Inside the base, hearts raced and hands shook. Humans had wondered for centuries if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer. From the alien ship, strange shapes emerged. They walked on 6 legs and had bodies that looked like a mix between insects and machines. Their heads had 4 eyes that moved in different directions at once. "They don't look friendly," whispered Lisa, the team doctor. "Don't judge by looks," Miller said, though his own heart was pounding. "Let's meet them properly." Miller selected 5 team members to join him outside. They put on their full spacesuits and stepped through the airlock. The red dust swirled around their boots as they walked slowly toward the aliens. The creatures stopped about 20 feet away. One stepped forward, taller than the others. It made clicking and humming sounds. "We come in peace," Miller said, using the words humans had practiced for this moment in movies and books for years. The alien leader tilted its head, then raised a device. A beam of light shot out and scanned the humans from head to toe. Then, to everyone's surprise, it spoke in broken English. "Humans, we are Vrel. We watch your signals for long time. We come to learn." Miller felt a wave of relief. They could communicate. This was going better than anyone could have hoped. "We welcome you to Mars." "We are explorers from Earth," Miller replied. What happened next was just a series of misunderstandings, but ones that would change the course of human history forever. The Vrel invited the humans to their ship. Against his better judgment, Miller agreed. Inside, the ship was bigger than it looked from outside. Strange lights pulsed along the walls, and the air felt thick and warm. "Show biology," the Vrel leader said, pointing at the humans. "We share knowledge." Dr. Lisa stepped forward. "I think they want to exchange medical information. It makes sense. Different species, different biology." The Vrel seemed especially interested in human arms. One of them touched Miller's arm through his suit, then made excited clicking sounds to the others. "Movement parts very simple," the Vrel leader said. "We show you our healing now." Before anyone could react, 3 Vrel grabbed Miller. Their grip was surprisingly strong. The leader pulled out a device that glowed blue. "Wait!" Miller shouted. "What are you doing?" The Vrel didn't answer. The blue light turned into a cutting beam. With one quick motion, it sliced through Miller's suit, and his arm just below the shoulder. The pain was instant and overwhelming. Miller screamed as blood sprayed inside his suit. The other humans yelled and pulled out their weapons. "Why hurt?" the Vrel leader asked, genuinely confused. It held Miller's severed arm, examining it with its 4 eyes. "Grows back, yes? Like our limbs?" "No!" Lisa screamed. "Human arms don't grow back. You've killed him if we don't stop the bleeding." Chaos erupted. The humans dragged Miller back while pointing their guns at the Vrel. Lisa quickly applied emergency medical care using suit sealant to close the wound temporarily. "Mistake! Mistake!" the Vrel leader called after them. "We think humans regenerate like Vrel." But it was too late for explanations. The humans retreated to their base carrying their bleeding commander. They sealed the doors and prepared their defenses, though they knew they stood no chance against the advanced alien technology. "Send the emergency signal to Earth," Miller gasped through waves of pain as Lisa worked to save his life. Tell them we met aliens and they are not friendly." The message was sent, a desperate call across the millions of miles of space. On Earth, military leaders received the distress call with shock and horror. Within hours, all of Earth's armed forces were on high alert. The Vrel ship remained on Mars, sending their own messages trying to explain the mistake. They didn't understand why the humans were so upset about a limb that they assumed would grow back. In their biology, lost limbs regrew within days, but humans didn't know this. All they knew was that aliens had attacked and mutilated their commander, and more alien ships might be coming. As Miller fought for his life in the medical bay of Mars Base Alpha, neither humans nor Vrel realized that this simple misunderstanding about biology would soon bring not just two species but three into a conflict that would change the galaxy forever. And somewhere in deep space, ancient beacons that humans had discovered and activated years ago began to pulse with new energy, sending signals far beyond our solar system, signals that would soon bring the most dangerous ships the galaxy had ever known. 3 weeks had passed since the terrible day on Mars. Back on Earth, Commander Jack Miller lay in a special room at the military medical center. His left shoulder ended in bandages where his arm had once been. Doctors and nurses moved quietly around him, checking machines and changing his medicines. General Adams stood by the window looking out at the city. His face was tired and worried. On the table next to him lay reports about the aliens called Vrel. They had sent many messages since the accident, trying to explain that they thought human arms grew back like their own limbs did. "How is he today?" General Adams asked the doctor. "Better. The wound is healing well," the doctor replied. "But he's angry. He wants to know what we're doing about the aliens." The general nodded. "Tell him we're working on it, and get him ready for the new arm." In another part of the building, a team of scientists worked day and night studying data from the alien ship. From what they could tell, the Vrel technology was at least 200 years ahead of human science. "Their weapons could destroy our entire fleet in minutes," said Dr. Ross, the lead scientist. "Their ship can move faster than anything we have. If they decide to attack Earth, we can't stop them." General Adams frowned. "Then we need to find someone who can." Late that night, the general called a secret meeting. Only 10 people in the world knew about this meeting. They gathered in a room, deep underground, protected from all signals and spies. Admiral Wilson, an old man with white hair, stood up to speak. 20 years ago, we found something strange in space. Not a signal from the Vrel, but from somewhere else much further away. We've been studying it ever since. We think it was a message, a way to call for help." He pressed a button, and a strange pattern of lights appeared on the screen. "We call it Protocol Omega. It's a beacon system. If we activate it, we send a specific signal into deep space. We never did it because we didn't know who would answer. But now, we need help." "General," Adams looked around the room. "The President has given approval. We're activating Protocol Omega tonight." In his hospital bed, Miller watched the news. The government had announced that aliens had been discovered on Mars, but they hadn't told the whole truth. They said it was a peaceful meeting. Nothing about his arm. Nothing about the danger. A nurse entered, pushing a cart with something covered by a cloth. "Commander Miller, we have something for you," she said, pulling back the cloth. On the cart lay an arm, not flesh and blood, but metal and plastic. It shone under the lights, beautiful and dangerous looking at the same time. "The best we could make," the nurse said, "using some ideas from the Vrel ship data. It's stronger than your old arm. Faster, too." Miller sat up. "How long until I can use it?" "We can attach it tomorrow. It connects directly to your nerves and brain. You'll need training, but within a week it should feel almost like your real arm." Miller nodded. Maybe this was a fair trade, his arm for new technology. But he still saw the Vrel in his dreams, still felt the burning pain of the cutting beam. Meanwhile, deep beneath the New Mexico desert, massive machines powered up. The beacons of Protocol Omega, hidden among regular satellite equipment, began to send their signal. The pattern, discovered in ancient space noise 2 decades ago, repeated over and over, aimed at distant stars. None of the humans knew exactly what they were doing. They hoped for help, for protection. They didn't know they were calling one of the oldest and most powerful races in the galaxy. On Mars, the Vrel noticed the change immediately. Their sensors picked up the strange signal pattern coming from Earth. "What are they doing?" asked the Vrel leader, who had not left Mars since the accident. "Is this a weapon?" "No," replied the Vrel scientist. "It's a signal, but not like their normal communications. It's directed outward to deep space." "Are they calling for help?" The leader's 4 eyes blinked in different patterns, showing worry. Impossible. They are alone in this system. There is no one to help them. But the Vrel were wrong. Humans were not as alone as they thought. 2 months passed. Miller learned to use his new arm. It could crush metal, move faster than the eye could follow, and even sense heat and electrical fields. Sometimes he forgot it wasn't his real arm until he saw it in the mirror, gleaming silver against his skin. The Vrel remained on Mars, still, trying to communicate, still trying to explain. Earth's leaders didn't know what to do with them. Should they forgive the mistake? Should they demand the Vrel leave? They didn't have the power to force them to go. Then, on a quiet Tuesday morning, every telescope and sensor on Earth and Mars detected something massive entering the solar system. Not one ship, but 3. Each one was larger than a city, moving in perfect formation toward Earth. The Vrel ship on Mars suddenly took off, moving to a defensive position. Their messages became urgent. Danger coming. Danger. Who did you call? Humans? Earth's military went to high alert. Nuclear weapons were made ready. Fighter pilots sat in their planes waiting for orders, but everyone knew it wouldn't be enough if these new ships were hostile. In the military command center, Miller stood before the main screen, his metal arm gleaming under the lights. The 3 ships were now visible, huge, dark shapes against the stars, like floating mountains. "They're hailing us," said the communications officer. "They want to talk." On the screen appeared a face, almost human but not quite. Pale skin, large eyes, no hair. It spoke, and its voice was deep and musical. "People of Earth, we are the Korvax. We received your call for protection. We have come to honor the ancient pact." Miller stepped forward. "What pact?" "We didn't know who we were calling." The Korvax smiled slightly. "No, you wouldn't remember. It was made long before your written history. We have watched your kind for millennia, protecting you from the shadows. Now you face your first real contact with the beyond, and it has gone poorly. We are here to help." The Vrel signals became even more panicked. They recognized the Korvax, ships. In their history, these beings were known as the Guardians, a race so advanced they were almost like gods. And they had come because humanity had called them. The game had changed. What started with a misunderstanding about a human arm had now brought a third player to the table, one that even the Vrel feared. The massive Korvax ships hung in Earth's orbit like silent mountains in space. People all over the world could see them at night, 3 bright spots moving slowly across the sky. Some people were afraid and hid in their homes. Others gathered in crowds, looking up with wonder. Inside the main Earth Command Center, Commander Miller stood with General Adams and other world leaders. His metal arm gleamed under the bright lights as they waited for the first official meeting. "With the Korvax. Are we sure about this?" asked the president, looking nervous. "Inviting them down to Earth?" Miller nodded. "They could have attacked already if they wanted to. They say they're here to help us." A large screen on the wall showed the Vrel ship, still orbiting Mars. Since the Korvax arrived, the Vrel had stopped sending messages. They just watched and waited. "The Korvax shuttle is entering the atmosphere," announced a young officer. "Estimated arrival in 5 minutes." Everyone in the room felt the weight of the moment. Humans were about to meet their second alien species face to face. The landing area was a large open field surrounded by military vehicles. Soldiers stood in perfect lines, not as a threat, but as an honor guard. Miller stood at the front with the welcoming committee, his heart beating fast. The Korvax shuttle landed without a sound. It was smooth and white, with no visible engines or windows. A door appeared in its side, and 3 tall figures stepped out. The Korvax looked almost human, but there were clear differences. They were taller, with pale blue skin and large, deep eyes. They had no hair, and their fingers were longer than human fingers. They wore simple white clothes that seemed to glow slightly. The leader stepped forward and bowed. "I am Nexus, Speaker, for the Korvax. We are pleased to meet you properly, children of Earth." Miller stepped forward and bowed in return. "I am Commander Jack Miller. Thank you for answering our call, though we didn't know exactly what we were doing when we sent it." Nexus smiled. That is often the way with young species. You found the old beacons and activated them without fully understanding their purpose. But that is why they were left for you to find. For when you needed us. The meeting moved to a large conference room. Security cameras recorded everything as world leaders asked questions, and the Korvax answered. How do you know our language? Asked the Chinese president. We have been watching your world for a very long time, Nexus replied. We learn the languages of all the species we protect. Protect from what? Asked General Adams. Nexus's expression grew serious. There are dangers in the galaxy that young species like yours are not ready to face alone. The Vrel are not one of these dangers. They are explorers who made a terrible mistake. But there are others who would see your world as nothing but resources to take. How long have you been watching us? Miller asked. Since your beginning, said Nexus. We were there when your ancestors first looked up at the stars. We guided some of your early development, though we have been hands-off for many thousands of years. We believe species must develop on their own to become strong. The room fell silent as everyone took in this information. Humans were not alone, and never had been. The Korvax had been watching from the shadows of history. Meanwhile, in orbit around Mars, the Vrel were panicking. Their leader called an emergency meeting on their ship. The Guardians have come, the leader said, using the old name for the Korvax. In all our history, they have only appeared when a species is threatened. They think we are going to harm the humans. We tried to explain our mistake, said another Vrel, but they stopped listening after we cut off the human's arm. Now the Guardians will protect them from us, said the leader, unless we prove we are not a threat. Back on Earth, the meetings with the Korvax continued for days. They shared some of their technology, medicines that could cure many human diseases, clean energy systems, and better space travel methods, but they refused to share weapons or anything that could be used to harm others. You must learn to use power wisely before you can have more of it, Nexus explained. This is the way of growth for all species. Miller spent much time with the Korvax. They were interested in his metal arm and improved it with their technology. Now it could do even more amazing things, almost like magic to human eyes. 1 week, after the Korvax arrived, the Vrel finally sent a new message. They requested a meeting with both humans and Korvax. We should hear what they have to say, Miller told the others. The accident with my arm was terrible, but I believe it really was a mistake. Nexus agreed. The Vrel are not evil, just different. They truly did not understand that removing your arm would cause permanent damage. A meeting was arranged on a neutral space station between Earth and Mars. Miller would represent humans, Nexus would represent the Korvax, and the Vrel leader would come for their species. As Miller's shuttle approached the space station, he looked out the window at the stars. 3 species that had never met before were about to sit down and talk. The future of Earth might depend on what happened in this meeting. The space station was simple, one round room with a table in the center. Miller arrived first, then Nexus. They waited nervously for the Vrel. When the Vrel leader entered, Miller was shocked. The alien looked different from before. Its body was smaller, and 2 of its 6 legs were missing. I have removed parts of myself, the Vrel leader explained, its voice translator making the words sound flat. To show I understand your pain. These will grow back for me, but I wanted to feel what you felt. Miller was speechless. He hadn't expected this. We can begin again, Nexus said quietly. 3 species meeting in peace. They sat down at the table, ready to talk. But unknown to them, other forces were already moving in the darkness of space. The peace would not last long. On a small moon of Jupiter, hidden sensors detected new ships entering the solar system. Ships that belonged to neither humans nor Vrel nor Korvax. The real danger was just arriving. The meeting on the space station ended with hope. Miller, Nexus, and the Vrel leader had talked for hours. Though they didn't solve all problems, they agreed to work toward peace. The Vrel apologized again for taking Miller's arm, and Miller accepted that it was truly a misunderstanding. As Miller's shuttle returned to Earth, alarm bells suddenly rang. The pilot's face went pale as she read the incoming message. Commander, we have a situation. New ships have entered the solar system. Not Korvax, not Vrel. Something else. Miller leaned forward. How many? At least 20. Small, but fast. They're heading toward Mars. When Miller landed, he rushed to the command center. General Adams stood before a large screen showing the new ships. They were dark and spiky like sea creatures made of metal. What do we know? Miller asked. Nothing good, replied the general. They're not answering any calls. The Korvax seem worried and the Vrel are in full panic mode. Nexus entered the room, moving quickly. His normally calm face looked troubled. Those ships belong to the Dreth, he said. They are scavengers who follow the Korvax. When we reveal ourselves to protect a young species, the Dreth sometimes come to take advantage of the situation. Take advantage how? Asked Miller. They steal technology, resources, sometimes even people for study. They are not as powerful as the Korvax, but they are dangerous and unpredictable. General Adams slammed, his fist on the table. So by calling you for help, we attracted these Dreth too? I am afraid so, Nexus admitted. We should have warned you this might happen. Before they could discuss further, the screen changed. The Vrel leader appeared, looking frantic. The Dreth are attacking our ship. They claim we violated Korvax protection laws by harming humans. Help us. The screen showed flashes of light around the Vrel ship near Mars. The Dreth vessels fired strange weapons that seemed to bend space itself. Nexus turned to Miller and General Adams. The Dreth are lying. They don't care about protection laws. They just want an excuse to attack and steal Vrel technology. What should we do? Asked Miller. We must help the Vrel, Nexus replied. If the Dreth destroy them, they will come for Earth next. General Adams nodded grimly. I'll order our space fleet to prepare, but our ships are no match for alien weapons. Nexus placed a hand on Miller's metal arm. The Korvax will provide defensive technology for your ships, and we have something special for you, Commander. Within hours, Earth's small fleet of space fighters was upgraded with Korvax shields. Miller was taken to a special room where Nexus presented him with a suit of armor that seemed to flow like water. This will work with your arm, Nexus explained. It responds to your thoughts just like your new arm does. Miller put on the suit. It felt light but strong, molding perfectly to his body. The metal of his arm seemed to blend with it, becoming part of a whole system. Why me? Miller asked. Because you stand between worlds now, Nexus replied. Part human, part machine. The suit works best with someone who already understands how to merge with technology. The first battle took place near Mars. The Earth ships, led by Miller in a special command vessel, joined the Korvax to defend the Vrel. The Dreth fought fiercely, their ships moving in strange patterns that seemed impossible. Miller discovered his new suit allowed him to connect directly with his ship's systems. He could feel the weapons, the engines, the shields, as if they were parts of his own body. With this advantage, he destroyed 3 Dreth ships, moving faster than any human pilot had ever moved before. But the Dreth had a surprise. One of their larger ships released hundreds of small drones. These drones ignored the battle and headed straight for Earth. They're going for your planet, the Vrel leader warned. They will take what they want and leave destruction behind. Half. The Earth fleet broke off to chase the drones, but they were too slow. The drones entered Earth's atmosphere, heading for major cities. On Earth, panic spread as strange objects appeared in the skies. In New York, Tokyo, London, and other cities, people watched as Dreth drones hovered over buildings scanning for technology to steal. The Korvax sent their own ships to help, but they couldn't be everywhere at once. Some drones were destroyed, but others began landing. They cut through walls like they were made of paper, taking computers, power sources, and sometimes even people. In the command center, General Adams watched helplessly as reports came in from around the world. We need to do something dramatic, he said. Something to end this before it gets worse. The Vrel ship, damaged but still fighting, sent a message. We have a weapon that could disable the Dreth ships, but using it might harm Earth's electronics too. How bad would the damage be? Asked General Adams. Temporary. Your systems would recover in days, but it would stop the Dreth. The general looked at the screen showing dozens of cities under attack. Do it. The Vrel weapon fired. A wave of energy spread through the solar system. All electronic devices flickered or shut down. The Dreth ships froze in space, unable to move or fight. But as promised, Earth's technology also failed. Cities went dark. Communication stopped. Even Miller's amazing suit and arm stopped working. For 3 days, Earth remained in darkness. People used candles and old radios that weren't affected by the energy wave. They waited and worried about what would happen when the power returned. When systems finally came back online, the situation had changed dramatically. The Dreth ships were gone. The Korvax had captured them while they were disabled. The Vrel ship was badly damaged but still there. But now a new problem emerged. Many Earth people were angry. The battle had brought destruction to their cities. The Vrel weapon had shut down hospitals and other important services. Some people died because of it. All aliens should leave, crowds shouted outside government buildings. They brought this war to us. Miller, his arm and suit working again, stood before the United Nations. He had seen the best and worst of 3 different species now. He knew there had to be a better way than more fighting. We need to work together, he told the world leaders. The Dreth attacked because they saw us as divided and weak. We must show the galaxy that humans, Korvax, and Vrel can stand together. But, even as he spoke, new threats were gathering. The Dreth were just the beginning. Other alien races had noticed Earth now. Some came with curiosity, others with darker purposes, and the biggest test was still to come. 1 month after the Dreth attack, Earth was still recovering. Cities were being rebuilt. People were trying to return to normal life, but things had changed forever. Humans now knew they were not alone in the universe, and the universe was not always friendly. In the new International Space Center built in Geneva, representatives from Earth, the Korvax, and the Vrel met daily. They were trying to create a peace agreement, but progress was slow. Trust was hard to build after so much fighting. Miller walked through the halls of the center, his metal arm now decorated with symbols from all 3 species. He had become a symbol himself, the human who lost an arm but gained understanding. "Commander." "Miller," called a young assistant running toward him. "Emergency meeting in the main hall. The sensors have detected something big." Miller hurried to the meeting room where screens showed a massive object moving toward Earth. It was bigger than any ship they had seen before, almost the size of Earth's moon. "What is it?" asked General Adams, who looked like he hadn't slept in days. Nexus, the Korvax leader, stood very still, his large eyes fixed on the screen. "It is a Dreth world ship, their entire civilization in one vessel. They must have called for reinforcements after we captured their scout ships." The Vrel leader clicked its mouthparts nervously. "This is beyond anything we expected. The world ship carries weapons that could destroy planets." President Wilson, who had aged 10 years in the past month, turned to the aliens. "Can your people stop this thing?" Both Nexus and the Vrel leader looked uncertain. "The Korvax have powerful ships," Nexus admitted, "but not enough to face a world ship. The Vrel weapon that disabled the smaller Dreth ships would have no effect on something this large." The room fell silent as everyone realized what this meant. Earth was facing a threat it could not survive. Miller looked at his metal arm, then at the faces around him, human, Korvax, and Vrel. An idea began to form in his mind. "What if we don't fight them?" he asked. Everyone turned to look at him. "The Dreth came because they saw division between our species," Miller continued. "They attacked the Vrel because they thought the Korvax and humans would not defend them. What if we show them we're united now?" "How would we do that?" asked President Wilson. Miller took a deep breath. "I'll go alone to meet them. 1 ship, 1 human. I'll bring something from each of our worlds to show our unity." The room erupted in argument. It was too dangerous. It was foolish. It wouldn't work. But in the end, they had no better plan. 2 days later, Miller piloted a small ship toward the massive Dreth world ship. His enhanced arm controlled the ship perfectly. In the cargo hold, he carried 3 items: a simple tree from Earth, a crystal from the Korvax homeworld, and a living Vrel egg given as a sign of ultimate trust. As he approached the world ship, Huge weapons turned toward his tiny vessel. A voice boomed through his communication system. "Human ship. You are alone. You cannot fight. Why do you come?" Miller activated his video system so the Dreth could see him. "I come to talk, not fight. I am Commander Jack Miller of Earth." There was a long pause. Then the voice returned. "You may enter through Bay 7. Any sign of weapons and you will be destroyed." Miller's ship was pulled into an enormous docking bay. When he stepped out, he was met by strange beings. The Dreth looked like tall, thin shadows with glowing eyes. They moved like smoke but seemed solid enough to hold weapons pointed at him. They led him through corridors that seemed to go on forever, until he reached what must be their command center. A circle of Dreth surrounded one larger figure seated on a floating platform. "I am Overlord Kust," the large Dreth said. "Why has a single human come to face the might of the Dreth? Where are your Korvax protectors? Where are the Vrel who harmed you?" Miller stepped forward. "They are waiting to see if diplomacy can succeed where weapons might fail." "Diplomacy?" The Dreth Overlord made a sound like harsh laughter. "The Dreth take what we want. We saw your arm was taken. We saw the Korvax come to protect you. We know the pattern. A weak species calls the Korvax, and resources are locked away from those who would use them better." Miller raised his metal arm. "Yes, I lost my arm. The Vrel took it by mistake. But look what came from that loss." He activated his arm's special functions. It glowed with light, showing the combined technology of human engineers, Korvax enhancements, and Vrel organic components. "This arm is stronger than my old one. I am better because of what I lost. And our three species are stronger together than apart." Miller opened the containers he had brought. "Earth gives life," he said, showing the small tree. "The Korvax give knowledge," he continued, displaying the crystal that glowed with stored information. "And the Vrel give future," he finished, revealing the egg that pulsed with potential life. "We offer to share all of this with the Dreth, not as separate species fighting for resources, but as allies." The Dreth Overlord was silent for a long moment. Then it moved closer to examine Miller's arm. "You have done what no species has done before," the Overlord said finally. "You have taken parts from each world and made something new. The Dreth have always taken by force because no one would share willingly." "We will share," Miller said firmly, "but as equals, not as victims." For 3 days, Miller stayed on the world ship, talking with the Dreth Overlord. When he finally returned to Earth, he brought a peace agreement, unlike any in human history, a 4-way pact between humans, Korvax, Vrel, and now Dreth. 6 months later, the first joint colony was established on Mars. With members of all 4 species working together, the Korvax shared their knowledge, the Vrel their biological skills, the Dreth their incredible building abilities, and humans their creativity and adaptability. Miller stood on a hill overlooking the new colony, his metal arm gleaming in the red sunlight of Mars. Next to him stood representatives of the other species, all watching their peoples work together. "From one mistake came understanding," said the Vrel leader. "From one arm came peace." Miller smiled. Sometimes losing something opened the way to gaining much more. His missing arm had led to an alliance that would reach to the stars, and somewhere, in the vastness of space, other species watched and wondered about the strange alliance forming in the solar system, an alliance born from a mistake about a human arm that didn't grow back.